Subway has teamed up with Live Nation to bring you great food and great music for a great value. Right now, buy a Subway $5 footlong and get a Live Nation concert ticket for $5 to participating Live Nation shows like Nickelback, The Fray, and Crew Fest 2. Ticket price does not include fees. See store for details. Subway. Eat fresh. Eat fresh. The B.S. Report is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects.
First of all,
This is the B.S. Report with Bill Simmons.
it might be cool, I don't know. And if it's not, I don't care.
The B.S. Report with Bill Simmons.
Bill Simmons works for ESPN. He's also named the sports guy, and he writes a comical sports column. He must be a popular dude.
The B.S. Report.
It's got a real dirty sound, like a rusty steak knife cutting through a well-aged steak.
Now.
Here's Bill Simmons.
Welcome to the B.S. Report. We're doing this documentary series that's going to be fantastic called 30 for 30. And I'm a little biased because I'm involved, but I really think this is going to be amazing. 30 stories about 30 years at ESPN. And one of the directors we have, who also did Crazy Love, who did Black Magic for us, a heavy-hitting PR guy, the one, the only, Mr. Dan Klores. Now on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline, what's happening? How was that intro?
That's pretty good. I haven't been in PR in 5 years, but that's okay.
But you're still, it's like, come on.
It's got my name, baby. That's it. It's got my name.
You're always in PR, though.
Yeah.
People go to you for big stuff.
Yeah, well, what? That's it. How's your book coming, man?
My book's coming great. We're going to talk about that. But I want you to know that when I'm involved in some sort of horrible scandal where I fathered multiple kids with other women, you're my phone call.
Well, I'll tell you this. In my first movie, The Boys of Second Street Park, I was, I don't know if you saw that, all about the counterculture. And
I saw everything you've
where
done.
I grew up, and I needed a Dylan song, so I manager's a friend of mine. I called him. Guy came back to me. He says, Dan, Bob's going to give you the record for free. I said, for free? He says, yeah. He says, because he wants you to know if he ever gets caught transsexual, he'll help him out of the jam.
Thank God for the bleep button.
Oh, okay. Is there a bleep button?
Yeah, we have one. These are paid.
Okay,
This is paid. You can swear all you want.
Okay.
It's
going to be like my film, man. They're going to be bleeping.
Let's talk. I want to talk Knicks with you first, and then we'll get into some of the other stuff.
Yeah.
But because they'll probably promote this on the website as 3030 director Dan Klores talking about the Knicks and other stuff. But so the Knicks, your favorite team. The documentary you're doing for us is about Reggie Miller, the Garden's greatest villain. Give us the brief synopsis.
It's about Reggie and the Knicks. I'm centering in on the 93, 94, 95. So it's the headbutt, 25 points in the fourth quarter, the 9 points in the 8 seconds, whole Spike Lee thing, and then the Ewing finger roll. It's 4 Rashomon moments, if you will, and but it's about this rivalry, two cultures who claim that they are the home of basketball, Indiana and New York City. It's about neither team winning in more than 20 years, and it's about big personalities. I'm trying to do it as a dark comedy, and I think I'm going to pull it off. And I did about 32 interviews in 1 month. Riley, Larry Brown, Donnie, LaSalle Thompson, Van Gundy, Ewing,
Reggie,
Starks, Reggie, of course, Mark Jackson, the Davis boys, Anthony Mason, Greg Anthony, and a lot of media. I have Vesey, Francesca, Ahmad, Marv Albert, and 2 guys in Indiana, or 3 that are terrific. Bill Banner, who used to be the columnist, Mark Boyle, the radio guy, and Slick Leonard, who I guess is now considered a media guy since he retired.
This sounds 2 hours to me.
Well,
you only have an hour.
I got 54 minutes, man. I mean, it's torture, but it's sort of a challenge, It's a challenge.
Well, maybe you could do the 54-minute for ESPN, but then do the special 2-hour extended director's cut.
Yeah, if they want to give me the money on ESPN.
Yeah. So the irony of this Reggie Miller thing is that he somehow ended up, a guy who was not on the Knicks, being the most memorable thing about the Ewing era.
Well, I guess there's, what? That's probably a true statement because the Ewing era, if you will, was such a colossal disappointment. I mean, it's romanticized, and I got to respect. I wasn't a Knicks fan then because Donnie Walsh has been my friend for over 40 years, so I was an Indiana Pacer fan actually, but I never liked the Knicks then. I grew up loving them, the Frazier, Reed, Earl teams, but I never liked those teams. They were always boring to me, but I watched everything, Bill, and I got to respect them doing this film. I mean, they were tough.
The last tough team, probably.
That's right. They followed the Pistons.
Yeah. The 04 Pistons, I think, are probably in that category. But yeah, they were the last badass team that they really kind of had to change the rules for after a while.
And the Pacers were, in a way, you know how it goes. Like, someone wins and people try to model everything after that. And so the Pacers were built in the Knicks' image. I mean, the Davis boys and LaSalle Thompson, and Smits was a big body. He wasn't going to knock you on your ass, but he was big, and big was important then.
Well, and Riley was smart because he had a team where he had his best player was a limited superstar, Ewing. They didn't have the perimeter guy, obviously the Jordan class, but not even the Drexler class to put with him. So he decided, I'm going to go in the other direction. I'm going to be really physical. I'm going to grind it down. I'm going to control the pace. I'm going to beat the hell out of the other team, and maybe I can win this way. And he almost did. Well,
and that's one of the points of the film is that who was Riley? Was he Showtime, or was that his alter ego? And my conclusion is Los Angeles Showtime was his alter ego. Riley was Schenectady. He was a really tough character himself as a player, and that was the demanding guy, and that's his true personality. Riley, who I never met, was a terrific interview. He was the last guy I interviewed,
Yeah.
And but that whole us versus them mentality mantra that he preached, and it got to the Knicks, and they believed it. They totally bought into it, and that's really what riled up. When you're a guy like Reggie Miller who needs the psychology to get going, to get revved up, he walks out on the court, and all of a sudden they're not shaking his hand. There's going to be a reaction to that. And that's what they did. They wouldn't shake your hand. They wouldn't pick you up if they fouled you. They wouldn't. Ernie Grunfeld says he says, we wouldn't even go out with you after a game if we roomed with you in college.
Well, they stole all that stuff from the bad boy Pistons, though.
Well, yeah, but, there's always been coaches like that. You wouldn't know because, I'm not sure how far you go back, probably, about 1990, something like that. But
how dare you?
But that was John Thompson at Georgetown, us versus them.
Yeah.
And there, of course, it had an economic and a racial undertone. Frank McGuire at North Carolina, at South Carolina, all the Catholic guys from New York City coming down, playing down south, us versus them. They hate us. Everyone hates us. We have to stick together.
Right.
And, that's and Riley admits that was him. That was him.
But doesn't that go back to the Auerbach Celtics, though? I mean, that was one of his master plays.
And the Auerbach Celtics, I try to forget about that team,
You mean you forgot about the 11 titles in 13 years? That didn't pop to your head?
No, it comes through. I just don't know what happened those last 2 years.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, if everyone forgets, the vaunted 70 Knicks, the greatest team ever, blah, blah, blah. Year before, same team loses to the old Celtics.
Yeah, that's it. But, one of my points also, and you'll dig this, is that there are only a few assassins in NBA history. And then you have to get into what is the definition of an assassin.
Oh, I'm just warning everybody. This is where the podcast is about to get heated. But go ahead.
And my definition of an assassin is someone that not only takes that last shot, that thirsts for it, that loves it, that makes it, and when they don't make it, they don't really care about it. And Reggie was an assassin. Obviously, Michael was an assassin. Kobe's an assassin. In your backyard, Larry Bird and Sam Jones were real assassins in the NBA. So I go to that footage. It's really great. I have shots of Bird making shots that I can't even believe him, man. You remember that shot? He's out of bounds. He puts it into his left hand. right?
Yeah.
Running out of bounds at the buzzer, and he makes it. But if you ask Bird, and if you ask Isaiah, because you could argue that Isaiah was an assassin.
In fact, I will argue it. He was an assassin.
Okay, and I think that's a legitimate argument. I'm not going to dispute it. But if you ask Bird and you ask Isaiah, who about Reggie, they will tell you that they would want Reggie to take that shot. They'll tell you that.
Oh, not over Bird and Isaiah, I hope.
Well,
come on, Bird was better than Reggie in clutch situations. You're not going to make me bring out the arsenal this early, I hope.
I'm not.
What happened in '94 Game 7 in Madison Square Garden? He was like 1 for 12 in the second half.
Yeah, but what happened in look, assassins miss.
How about '95 Game 7 Orlando?
How about
Terrible.
90? How about '95 Game 7 in New York? How about 90?
How about '99 Allen Houston kicking his butt?
Kicking Reggie Miller's butt.
Kicking it. Yeah. Kicking it hard.
Hey, what does that mean? Guys can't do it every single game. And Reggie, if Allen Houston kicked his butt in one game, well, good for Allen Houston. By the way, one of my other points is, because you talk about the last tough team on the Knicks, right? That was the last tough team in the league, maybe Detroit after that. But and no one remembers this. Everyone likes what was the move that screwed up the Knicks? What was the move that never let them get under the cap? And who was responsible for that? And my view is that's Checkets.
Are you talking about the Patrick Ewing trade?
I'm talking about they should have made that trade a year. They should have gotten rid of Ewing a year or two before. They never should have re-signed him. He had torn the ligaments in his wrist. He wasn't the same player. That operation, you're never going to be the same player. He had value, and they signed him to $30 million, and that was the end of it. He had value before they signed him. They would have got value, and they lost it all after that. And
but they always had blinders on with Ewing. And what's funny is, the Knicks fans deep down, I think, kind of knew he didn't have it, but they talked himself into it because the guy played hard. He got everything out of what he could get, but he wasn't a natural 40-point scorer. He wasn't he maybe had 1 year in 1990 when it seemed like it was going to happen, but it just didn't happen.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, he was. I've watched tons of games now, and he was a tough customer.
He was very good, but he wasn't.
There were games in the seventh game of '94, he got 23, 22, 7 rebounds and 5 blocks. I mean, he came to play, and he never complained. And the whole point about that finger roll, which is terrific in the film, is that everyone has their own theory, but people forget he was completely banged up. He had a thigh injury. It was twice the size, of a normal thing. He couldn't elevate, and he played every game and never complained, man. And he was just another guy like Reggie. He never had the Pippen. He never had the number 2. He never had the Drexler,
Well, I would argue the other way. I would say, and by the way, the finger roll, for those of you who don't remember, he missed the finger roll to basically end the Knicks season in 1995. But
that was the end of the Knicks.
It was the end of the Ewing era as far as I knew. But I would argue that Miller and Ewing were the Pippen. And the problem is that they didn't have the Jordan. They were, I think ideally, they were second bananas next to a guy who was like the kind of do-it-all center of the universe guy.
But I think it's a ridiculous statement because how many Jordans were there? Who would be the number 1 to a Milling or a Ewing?
Like a Hakeem, a Shaq, a Tim Duncan. I'm just talking about guys in that.
But how many are there?
There's not.
So, but if you had a Miller with Ewing, well, that's a championship team.
It probably is because they probably the sum of the parts. Maybe neither of them is a prototypical franchise carry on your back, win the title guy, but together maybe.
And how many guys? It's funny. You mentioned Hakeem, Shaq, and Duncan. Those guys are all 6'11" and more. So under that, how many are there in the last 20 years?
Not many. There's only probably like 10, 11. But those are the guys who win the titles.
10 or 11 under 10 or 11.
Bird, Magic, Moses. Oh yeah, I'm going back like 25 years.
Yeah,
but Bird, Magic, Moses.
The last time I checked, he was about 6'11".
Right.
But
Kobe
Kobe. By the way, let me ask you a question.
won the title this year?
Yeah, no. Listen, I don't take anything away from Kobe. Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Because did you see my opinion of that series in Game 4? Right.
Yeah.
They won when Kobe elbowed Dwight Howard, and Dwight Howard wanted to be friendly to Kobe. Do you remember that?
Yes.
You know, that was that's the definition of that series. And then soon after that, Kobe just flattened Jamar Nelson.
Yeah.
Whole different level, right?
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and then what about my favorite play that never went reported? You know, and I didn't see you. You probably did it, but Turgaloo, who loves to flop, he chose a moment to flop in the last minute, right? Which led to a breakaway layup, right? You know?
Yeah. I forgot about that. I don't even think I mentioned that. Well, at that point, you kind of knew they were going to lose, though.
Yeah, but they, that gave him 3 points. That's when he flops. So
well, wait a second though. We got away from Reggie Miller here.
Yeah.
Here's my argument. I think he was overrated. I think you look at the All-Star teams, the All-NBA stuff like that. He just wasn't a superstar. He maybe once in his career was considered a top 10 guy. And then you look at the era that he was in, the time that he peaked. Jordan goes to play baseball and Reggie Lewis dies in the same summer. Those were the two guys that routinely killed him. And all of a sudden, he's got this league where it's the league's definitely a little more diluted. You got expansion. You got no Jordan for 2 years. And Reggie Lewis, who torched him over and over again, now out of the league.
Wait a second. First of all, you have Jordan out for a year and a half.
Well, for 2 years, basically. He didn't see him in the 94 or 95 playoffs.
But Jordan is in a class by himself.
I'm just saying, those were Reggie's peak. Jordan was nowhere to be seen.
You cannot name players in that time period. You can't name 10 players. You can't name 3 players in that position that were better than Reggie Miller that you'd want on your team.
I can't.
No.
How about Ray Allen? Wait, what's the difference between Ray Allen and Reggie Miller?
Allen. Ray Allen never played on a winning team in his life until he got to the Celtics.
Ray Allen never had good teammates. Reggie Miller had good teammates his whole career.
You know, he never, ever played on a winning team until he got to the Celtics.
Well, the Sonics were good in 05, and he almost took the Bucks to the finals in 01.
You know, but Ray Allen, you're a statistics guy, which I'm not. The statistics are the
same.
Both. They're the same. Ray Allen, it's almost identical, with the exception of the playoffs when Reggie Miller had much better games than Ray Allen.
Because they ran every play for him.
Well, I think you're unfair to Reggie. I mean, the guy.
I think he was very good. He was a very good player.
Well, you can't. Would you take Clyde Drexler over Reggie Miller?
Here's what I'm getting from Reggie Miller. I have to basically run my whole offense around him. I have to set picks all over the court. My big guys have to be constantly worried about springing him free from stuff. I'm getting 21 points, 3 rebounds, and 3 assists a game from him. Does that win me a title if he's my best guy?
But he's worth it. He's worth it. And
he's worth it in what sense?
He's worth it in that he is the guy that you want the ball in Reggie Miller's hands.
Right, but I would say he's a poor man's Sam Jones. He's the guy at the end of the game that you go to, but if you're expecting him to carry your team, he's not in him. He's not that guy. I would even say Drexler getting the Blazers to the 90 and 92 finals, if you look at the guys that he played with, a better achievement than anything Reggie did.
I don't know. Reggie got his team to the finals.
He got his team to the finals in 2000. In
2000, he got his team to the finals. I mean, he played in the Jordan era. You know, no one, as a fact, could defeat Jordan. Every year they'd come up with, it's Magic against Jordan. Jordan killed Drexler. Your guy Gary Payton. Jordan would just
my guy Gary Payton.
Well, you just came up with Seattle and stuff. The glove is going to stop Jordan. He's going to wrap him up. I mean,
I will say the 2 things that I really admired about Reggie is, one, he was never afraid of Jordan. Everybody from that era was terrified of Jordan,
Correct.
and Jordan could just break him down. Reggie looked him in the eye. They even got in a fight once.
Yeah, they got.
You look at Game 4 of the '98 Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah.
Makes that shot. One of the few times that somebody got the best of Jordan in a
and
big
pushes
moment.
him off.
Yeah, and did the Jordan cheat move.
And
that was Jordan's patented push-off move.
And that's right. And Ahmad says, I interviewed Ahmad in the film. It was actually terrific, man. And Ahmad says that he says you knew that Reggie was special when he even got under Michael's skin.
Exactly.
Michael went to choke him.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But you want to hear a great moment, man? Like after the headbutt.
Yeah.
You remember when Ewing and Oakley start pushing Starks on the court?
Right.
You know, and they're pushing their own teammate. He gives him the headbutt. He gets thrown out of the game, you know, and they're pushing him. And this is revealed in the film. A day or two later, Starks' mother calls up Ewing. Don't you push my boy again.
Wow. That's great.
How good is that, man?
The other thing I loved about Reggie, and you mentioned it earlier, is that he wasn't afraid to miss the big shot. And there's a lot of guys who are. It's a rare group of somebody who can miss the biggest shot of the game and then come back and take it the next game. And I think that's a special chromosome that not a bunch of people have. But my thing is, I just think people, and this happens sometimes. This is a lot of what my basketball book's about. When guys retire, their career can be remembered one of two ways, and you can remember the good things about it, or you can kind of gloss over the stuff. And we see that happen with Wilt Chamberlain now. When he played against Russell during that whole era, everybody agreed Russell was better. And now there's been a revisionist history, and now it's like, oh, but Wilt, he had 50 a game. Maybe Wilt was better. Like, you know, as time passes, people just forget, and they choose what they can remember.
The time passes argument about life is a valid discussion, right? I mean, 30 years from now, there may be some morons in this earth that think George Bush was a good president, right?
Right.
But on the other side of your argument, if Reggie Miller played in a bigger market, he'd be lionized. There'd be no reassessment. He would have been lionized. He's sort of the Hank Aaron of baseball. I mean, I grew up a Willie Mays fan, but when you look at it, come on, man. If Hank Aaron would have played in one of those three teams in New York, forget about it. The Wilt Chamberlain argument, I loved Wilt, but here's one factor. Russell won.
All the time.
Russell won. And that doesn't take anything away from Wilt. It just says that Russell was. Yeah,
but there's been a revisionist history that Russell had better teammates the whole time. I debunked this in my book. I don't want to give my book away, but it was BS.
I don't know about that because when I was doing Black Magic, I spent a lot of time with Al Attles. Have you spent time with him?
I have never spent time with him, but always appreciated that he was the first coach to ever get thrown out of a game in an NBA Finals for charging onto the court and beating the hell out of Mike Reardon.
And he was going to beat the out of Ansel. And he was one guy that could have.
Yeah. He was the toughest guy of that era.
He was
under
really
6'7",
tough, right? But he said to me, because he was those days it wasn't point guard, shooting guard. There were two. He and Guy Rogers were the guards on that team, and Attles. Attles wasn't a scorer, but in the 100-point game, I think he scored 36. But Attles said, look, he says, it took us a long time to come to the conclusion, many years after we retired, right, that they were just better than us.
Right, but when Wilt got traded back from San Francisco to Philly, that stretch he had from 1965 to 1974, which is the last two-thirds of his career,
right?
He was playing with Hall of Famers left and right. I mean, he played with Weston Baylor. He was playing with Hal Greer, Billy Cunningham. It's not like he was playing with schmucks.
Yeah, he win twice then, right?
He won twice, but he really should have won. He should have won 6 or 7.
Look,
in that stretch.
Well, I'm not denying that.
Lost a Game 7 at home in 1969. Game 7, 1970 Finals. Willis Reed limping around. Wilt doesn't just pulverize him. Willis playing on one leg.
Look, the guy was a great athlete, great basketball player. Russell had his number, and there was. You said the key word. You said a really interesting word, chromosome, and there was just a little something off I mean, you
With
can't
Wilt.
sit like Wilt did when in that Van Bredikoff game.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
Jerry West had a good quote about him. He was like, Russell, I forget the exact quote, but it was like Russell, all he cared about was how he could help his teammates help him win. And Wilt's mindset was, how can I help? What's the best situation for me? And then expected, maybe it wasn't Jerry, it was somebody else. I have it in the book, but what is the best situation for me, and how can my teammates help me? And that was the difference.
But that is but you have defined right there
Yes.
what the game and how the game should be played.
Right.
That's it. There is no. Larry Brown says,
You're going to love my book.
I probably will. And I'd like to meet the ghostwriter also. But Larry Brown says, there's only one way to play the game, the right way.
Right.
And when you look at what's happening now, like my kid plays at AAU Riverside Church, and they're actually in Vegas now. They're good. That's a good program, but you still have coaches in that program and others, man. It's all run and gun.
Well, it's all run and gun and clear out. Let me take my guy off the dribble. You stand over there.
It's unbelievable, and that's what's happened to the game. But you got it, and that's the difference. If you believe if it's 5=1, another Larry Brown thing,
right.
5=1. Well, then you could beat people.
I have one last thing about Reggie that you mentioned.
Yeah.
You said that, he was in Indiana, small market. If he had been in a bigger market, he would have been lionized. Yeah. I would argue that he kind of was in a bigger market because his effect that he had on the Ewing era, that accomplished the same goal. The New York media, who lavished anybody with more praise or attention or anything for an opposing player than Reggie Miller?
Well, it wasn't actually attention is correct. Praise is not, and the small-mindedness of some sports writers would really not give him his due. Also, that was 7 or 8 years into his career, 94, 95.
Right.
And no, it's not a good argument. Indiana is really a small market. Do you know? I have footage. It's very funny. When they entered, no one knows this. When they went from the ABA to the NBA, and by the way, they won 3 championships in the ABA in 4 years with great teams, right?
Right.
And that's one. I said before, neither team had won since '73, the Knicks or the Pacers. They had great teams, the Pacers. And when they went into the NBA, they were near bankruptcy. They were not selling any season tickets. Are you ready? They had to hold a telethon on local TV in order to sell season tickets in order to make sure that they get into the NBA. It's unbelievable. Hosted by Slick Leonard and his wife.
And then,
so that's the major market you're talking about?
Well, but I'm saying that Reggie got more than enough attention in 94 and 95. There is no storyline played up more than Reggie at MSG.
Well,
and that's why you're doing a documentary about it.
It should have been the storyline. It was a great storyline. But, actually, one can make the argument now. It's funny because it was your series, right? Boston versus, who was it? Who they go to the 6 overtime games with?
Boston, Chicago.
Boston, Chicago.
Yeah.
Now, that Boston, Chicago, what was it, 5 or 6 overtimes in a 7-game series?
I think it was 5 different overtime games, yeah.
Now, if you look back at that, for some weird reason, that doesn't get that's probably the greatest playoff series in history of pro basketball.
You know what hurt it? Game 7 sucked.
It did?
Yeah, and that's, I think if Game 5 had been Game 7, maybe it lives on a little more, but the refs ruined the Game 7. They called every touch foul.
Well,
that was a shame.
It's something wrong because, look, Game 5, Boston-Phoenix, 76, right?
Yep.
That's the greatest game ever. You had 4 or 5 of these games in this one series, man.
Right. Wait, let's talk about the Knicks.
Yeah.
Because, as you said, your friend Donnie Walsh, your friend of 40 years, now running the Knicks. And they do not have a first-round pick next year, which I don't think the average NBA fan even knows or realizes.
Correct.
They have this cap space, but the cap's going backwards. they're in this weird no man's land where they want to improve the team, but they're really kind of afraid to because they don't want to tie up their 2010 cap space. Mm-hmm. If you're a Knicks fan, what are you thinking right now?
Well, I'll tell you what you should be thinking is, thank God there's someone with intelligence, discipline, patience, and maturity running this organization. And this is what should have happened 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago.
Right.
And you're going to have to bite the bullet and you know, and hopefully, and I think he will continue, Donnie, to have that focus and discipline, not to fall into the trap and get a Stevie Francis or a Jalen Rose or an Eddie Curry or a Stephon Marbury. You know, I mean, he's got to take his lumps. And, you know, the cap, went down $1 million, it'll probably go down, another $1.5 million or $2 million, right?
Well,
but
next summer it could go down $4 or $5 million. Is
it that much, really?
Yeah.
But what can you be doing? This year was remarkable because I think New Yorkers recognize what we have here. We finally have what I was saying, maturity and intelligence and leadership and patience. And they were fine. They were fine.
But what happens if somebody offers David Lee $50 million and the team has to decide, you know, back to your patience thing, do we match this? Do we screw up the cap space? Do we just have a lousy team again?
Well, I think, look, was this a good team? No. Did management like this team? No. Did this team put out infinitely more than teams in the past? Yes. And did the fans accept it? Yes. To a certain extent, they did. So, like, are you going to give David Lee $10 million a year for 5 years? No way. No way.
Yeah, but on the other hand, if, let's say you bottom out this year and it's implicit with the fans. We're bottoming out summer 2010. Yeah. We're going to take care of business. Don't worry. But you don't have a number one pick. So you'd be bottoming out so Utah could get your top 3 lottery pick. Yeah, How do you sell that to your fans?
Well, you can't. You can't. Well, what can you do? You just got to tell the truth, man. I mean, like, you know.
Well, what if I'm buying courtside seats for the Knicks and I'm taking a leap of faith. This season's going to be awful, but you guys are going to take care of me a year from now.
Well, but that's what it is. It's a leap of faith.
But you think New Yorkers making that leap?
Well, you know, they made it more this year than they have in the past. I mean, I've had season tickets for years. I got 3 little boys, so I keep them. If I didn't have the boys, right? And if Donnie wasn't there, forget about it. There's no way in the world I would have kept these seats. You know?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like, but you know, I have faith. You know, he's made mature decisions. I mean, there was so much pressure on him. Oh, pick this guy as your coach. This guy as your coach. You know, and you know, he picked the guy that he wanted. You know, he got rid of I mean, listen, man, there should be a permanent statue in front of Madison Square Garden of Jerome James. I mean, they signed this guy for $36 million. I mean, what were they, on acid? I mean, are you kidding me?
That wasn't even one of the 5 worst moves.
And they got totally, completely fleeced by Paxson in Chicago on Eddie Curry. I mean, these guys in Chicago, there's like Al Capone. They got to be sitting in their room laughing. Oh, okay, we're going to tell you his heart is terrible. He can never play. We know that Isaiah will react. Oh, I could get him. You know, right? And that's the way they got Eddie Curry? I mean, and then Marbury. Oh, by the way, let's talk about your team a little, man. How did that Marbury experiment go?
Poorly.
How did he do in the playoffs?
Poorly. I disliked him.
Is he going to be back?
No, he's not going to be back.
Now, what about the taller version of Marbury that you just acquired, Rasheed Wallace?
Well, here's the problem with the Celtics, in my opinion, is that they put a little too much stock into what their best 3 guys think about other guys in the league. In my opinion, that's the GM's job.
That's right.
All those guys were on board with Marbury. Oh, no, don't worry, we'll work him. He's got talent. And meanwhile, the guy, there was a moment in Game 5 of the Bulls series, which was really, if the Celtics lose that game, they lose the next game in Chicago, they're done. Marbury's wide open, passes up a 3.
Correct. That's right.
And, for them not to know that he would have been rusty and just not
Right.
You know, and also he's a selfish, he's a scorer, he's a me-first guy. He's not the kind of guy we want on the team.
And, Bill, he passed it up. Remember why? Because he missed the one before.
Right.
That's why he passed it up.
You know, and this is what worries me about Rasheed is everybody's reacting like we signed 2004 Rasheed Wallace, but we signed 2009 in a contract year stunk Rasheed Wallace.
Let me tell you something. That guy cost the Pistons their second championship.
He did. He didn't double Robert, or didn't jump on Robert Horry.
He not only didn't double, but people don't remember, he not only didn't double, he got out there late, and he did that for 5 minutes before. Robert Horry became Julius Erving against Rasheed Wallace. Man.
I know. I think there's been some reconstruction with Rasheed because, they won the 2004 title because of him.
Yeah.
But, really, you look back at his career, and this guy's been... Yeah. For the gifts that he had, probably a disappointment.
Totally a disappointment. That team, listen, that guy's been one of these guys, like, when you think about it, he came out of North Carolina his freshman year. Look at that freshman class. Rasheed Wallace, Jeff McGinnis,
right,
and Jerry
Stackhouse. Yeah. Well, and also, you mentioned 2005, that he screwed that series up.
Yeah.
Everyone forgets that when the Lakers came back from 15-17 down in 2000, Game 7, Rasheed missed like 6 straight shots in the fourth quarter. Like he was one-on-one post moves, 10-footers, and missed everything he took basically.
Yeah,
so I don't know. I'm not that excited.
This is a myth. It is like a myth. They were, it was like someone said, okay, like we need another guy like P.J. Brown, and look what we got. He's younger and he's a better offensive player, but it goes back to what you said before. I mean, obviously P.J. Brown was too old by the time he got to the Celtics, but that was a guy who played within himself.
He won us the title. If he was the best player in the court in Game 7 of the Cleveland series, and if he wasn't, we would have lost. Doc Rivers gets fired.
Yeah, he played within himself. Rasheed Wallace, man, you have to give that. That's the great thing about Larry Brown. Like if you can't expect more from that guy than your 2 to 3 years, but boy, you're going to get it. And that's the big disappointment. You're going to get it. He got Rasheed Wallace to play.
Well, the thing, Rasheed's in a very dangerous stage right now that I don't think people realize. The most dangerous stage for an NBA player is when they're no longer as good as they were, but they still think they are. You know what I mean? Like he's like, I'll take this 25-footer. I'm the right guy to take this. Actually, you're not anymore. You're a 35-year-old guy.
Yeah, well,
we don't want you to shoot that. I'd rather see Paul Pierce shoot right now.
Yeah, but
thank you though.
That's part of the. I don't want to overstate it, but I was going to say genius. But that's part of the. When you see a quality coach and a quality team, and that's when they know who should take that shot, and the team completely buys into it, and they buy into it. I always looked at the University of Florida. That second year, they would kind of come back, and I said, can't repeat because somewhere along the line, one of those kids is going to take that shot that they shouldn't, but they did. They didn't. Well,
you just described the conundrum that, I don't know if the Laker fans are in denial or they're not seeing it, but Ron Artest is going to take those shots when you're not going to want him to take.
100%
That's his career. He takes shots that you go, oh, no, Ron, no!
Right. That's exactly right.
And they don't know that that's coming. Ariza knew when to shoot and when not to shoot.
And was scared enough. They're buying into the fact that Phil Jackson and Kobe are going to be able to control Artest like Jackson and Michael did to Rodman. But they're not the same players. Artest has an offensive game. He's going to look to take those shots. And I think the Lakers, if they stay healthy, they can give the Bulls record a serious run, regular season record. But Artest will lose them 5 important games in the regular season and the playoffs because he takes that shot.
Well, and also, not just that, but he's not the same defensive player anymore. And I can't believe all the people that I've heard say, oh, well, defensively, he's not even remotely the same guy defensively.
Yeah. And the good news is Rasheed to Boston, Artest to Los Angeles,
everybody's getting a little. Well, the Celtics aren't worse because they, basically Rasheed is getting minutes that were going to Mikey Moore and Brian Scalabrine last year, but they didn't get the swing guy they need to shut down the legs of Ben Gordon. Whatever basically hot swing guy, they don't really have anybody to guard somebody like that.
But, you talk about the shot at the wrong time. I watched I was stunned by the Celtics, who I thought performed incredibly well considering Garnett was out, right?
Yep.
I was just blown away, man. You know, I never thought that Glenn Davis had a game, and now you have to say, oh, boy, that guy made some big shots, right?
Yeah.
You know? But who lost them the games? All of a sudden, this guy Tony Allen is taking shots.
Oh, don't get me started.
What was that?
Well, he didn't. Fortunately, by the Orlando series, Doc Rivers had realized that he could not be played.
Remember those two shots he took?
Yeah, the Chicago series was not.
I mean,
Yeah, not good.
Hey, he's still on the team?
Unfortunately. It's a sore subject. He might be on your team next year. We're trying to trade him to Donnie. Hey, let's talk about your Peabody.
Yeah.
This is a big deal.
That was nice.
You should be proud.
I am proud, man. I am proud.
So you won a Peabody for Black Magic, which appeared on ESPN, 2 parts.
Right.
Basically the history of, how would you describe it?
It's a film
one-sentence synopsis.
It's a film about the civil rights movement told through the lives of basketball players and coaches from historical black colleges only.
Perfect. I knew you'd do it better than me.
Yeah, that was good.
And I don't know. It's important. And I think if you care about basketball and you care about this country, I'd be disappointed if you didn't see it.
Thank you. But you cannot even buy the home video on a Black Magic online, and it just won the Peabody, man. How disgusting is that, man?
Well, your 30 for 30 experience will go better, I promise.
You know, there's some good films in that. I can't wait to see some of these films.
How did you... Oh, it's going to be great. How did you... My Black Magic question, even though it already happened, is this. Yeah. You're a white guy and you're doing this huge documentary. How much resistance did you get initially from the African-American community from the sense of, why are you the one doing this?
I didn't feel... I'm sure there was. I didn't feel it, you know.
Because you had Earl Monroe involved. That probably helped on that front.
Well,
right?
that helped, and he was one of the producers, and just beyond a lovely man. And that's not to say that there is not a need for more and more African American filmmakers and artists to have a chance. You know.
Right.
I didn't have that resistance. I learned a lot, but the reason I didn't, one of the reasons I didn't, you know, have a lot of resistance, I felt like,
passionate about it.
I'm passionate about it. I believe in it. You know, I totally believe in it. You know, I don't want to say this and feel like I'm bragging. It was me, but most of all, it was a subject matter that has been so ignored.
I know
that everyone was so happy to participate. And Ben Job said something much brighter than I can. And he said, you know, the great thing is now people could see historical black colleges, and now they could do the important stuff. They could pay attention to the doctors that we put out, to the physicists, you know, right? And they could begin to give us money so we can survive. You know?
Well, I think the thing that I don't know if you underestimated this or not. I kind of had underestimated it until I wrote about right after Elgin Baylor got kicked aside by the Clippers. Mm-hmm. And I had been working on my book for 2 years at that point, so I lifted a small part of my book about, you know, this guy was a hero, and he dealt with stuff that I just don't think people realized he dealt with when he played. So I wrote about some of the things that happened to him and just what it was like to be an African-American professional athlete in the 50s and 60s, where you were considered to be a superstar on the court, but you were discriminated against off the court. And what shocked me in the emails I got after were people like, wow, I didn't know a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
And people under 30 just, you know, it's kind of swept under the rug almost, which is kind of frightening.
It's very frightening. It's not, and amazingly, it's not only white people, it's a lot of African American people of that age. I mean, Perry Wallace, who was in the film, and just a great intellect, the first black guy ever to play in the SEC at Vanderbilt, and a phenomenal college player. He's now a professor of law at American University. And when he saw it the first time, he said, I'm so glad that you did this, because I tell my students, as a law professor, I tell my students this stuff, and they look at me like I'm nuts. My black students, you know.
Right.
I mean, it's so.
Well, how about?
Great. It's great though. But what's not great is that this not so subliminal feeling of continuing to exclude and discriminate against in ways continues, and the biggest provocateur of that in the basketball world is the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
The Hall of Fame.
Which you'll be happy to know I blow up in my book.
Good.
Yeah.
By the way, you can't do it enough. Do you know? You might know this. Who is the selection committee? Who does this?
It's
stuff?
Mo, Larry, and Curly.
That's it, man.
The fact that Dennis Johnson is in the Hall of Fame, done and done. I will never go there.
You know, it's like someone told me, and I have to say, because I have to clearly say that I don't know if it's accurate, you know, right. but nevertheless I'll repeat it. But they said that there's 40 people that vote. 2 are women, 2 are African American males.
And that's it.
Now this was a board member that told me this. So, but I never checked on it.
Right.
But because you say Dennis Johnson, but Bill.
Well, I know you're going way back. It's a disgrace.
There are dozens of coaches, players, thinkers, scholars that contributed to the game of basketball whose roots are in historical black colleges, and I have been on this campaign for 2 years.
They should have a wing.
They haven't done. I don't want to get a bleep, right? They haven't done anything, and I've had Shaquille O'Neal 4 weeks ago, step up to the plate and say the Hall of Fame should do this, and they continue to lie. They lie.
You know what? You know what's the move? I think somebody should just create an African American Basketball Hall of Fame, and all those people will steal all their memorabilia and everything, you know, whatever, and it'll just be in one place and screw the Hall of Fame.
It's disgraceful, you know, and they continue to say, "Oh, we're going to do it, we're going to do it, we're going to do it," you know, and you know, like I think they should move it, you know, from Springfield, Massachusetts. They should move it to Harlem, man. You know.
I was in my book. I say that I voted for Indiana just because it's. I mean, who thinks that? But who thinks of Springfield as like the hotbed of basketball? I think like you have to go with Indiana, or as you said, Harlem. It's got to be somewhere where the roots of the game are there. I know Dr. James Naismith created basketball there, but Springfield, Massachusetts is not basketball.
Yeah,
I don't get it.
Boy, oh boy, and you know, like I've had the Black Sports Writers Association, the Black Coaches Association, the NBA Retired Players Association, a number of existing African American members of the Hall of Fame, Shaquille O'Neal. They've all written letters, and there's a different story every time. Oh, well, now we're going to do it in September. We're going to have a meeting here in September. 2 years later, but there's no proof. I asked Earl Monroe the other day, has he heard? No.
Well, there should be a place where younger people can go and learn about that part of the game, and it really doesn't exist. Doesn't exist,
you know, and even baseball. Baseball's opened its doors twice to the Negro League.
I know.
You know?
Yeah.
So, isn't this supposed to be a more progressive sport?
The most damning thing about the Hall of Fame for me is that I went to college, like, I don't know, 50 minutes away from it or whatever. We did go there once in 4 years, because why would you?
Yeah. Where'd you go to college?
I went to Holy Cross. And, you know, the Worcester to Springfield drive, probably I don't remember. And
you never went to the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, it was like an hour and a half. I don't even remember. Never went once.
That's funny.
Never why would you? Hey, I want to talk about your previous career before you became a documentarian.
Yeah.
As a heavy hitter PR guy.
Yeah.
And don't say you're retired, because I know you still dabble.
I don't.
You can claim otherwise, but you dabble.
I don't.
Do you do some dabbling?
No, but go ahead. If you got in trouble and you made
dabble?
the call, then I'd help you out.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
If a friend gets in trouble, I'll help you out. That's it. But I'm not doing anything, man. Believe me.
Did you ever deal with Michael Jackson?
Yes.
When was that?
I dealt with Michael Jackson 2 or 3 times in that career. And each one was more hilarious than the next.
Well, let's hear about it. He's dead.
Well, years ago, you know, I'm friends with and have represented off and on for years Howard Stern, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Howard was going to do a network TV special. This is when Planet Hollywood was big. Remember Stallone, Schwarzenegger, and those guys, and this has been since then. This has been documented in his second book, but we were all sworn to secrecy, so it didn't come out for years. And he was going to do a 2-hour network special, a half hour with Schwarzenegger, a half hour with Stallone, and then I arranged a meeting because the full last hour was going to be Howard Stern one-on-one with Michael Jackson.
Whoa!
So
what year was this? Like mid-90s?
Yeah, mid-90s, I think. And so I arranged a meeting. It was at the Pierre Hotel. Me, Howard's agent Don Buchwald, Michael, and Michael's then manager Sandy Gallen. Mm-hmm. And it was beyond. And Howard would talk about it on radio all the time, but he would never say with who. Right, leading up to.
All right, I just looked it up. So we're talking like 1990, 91, somewhere in there.
Okay, so we're in the Pierre, and Howard is like describing what the show is going to be, and Michael's very uncomfortable, but he's laughing. And by the way, I thought like there was something wrong with my contact lenses. I kept on thought they were dirty. I'm rubbing my eyes because I can't see the guy's nose.
Ugh.
And there was like a Band-Aid. That's what it was, a Band-Aid on his nose. And finally Howard says, so one of the things I'm going to do, Michael, is after a while I'm going to bring out these 3 beautiful girls, and I'm just going to say, Michael Jackson, do these girls turn you on? So now there's a little bit of an uncomfortable laugh, right? And then Howard says, and then I'm going to bring out a young boy. That was the end of the meeting.
And he got up, that was it?
Well, that was the end of the meeting, and the meeting was, over in 10 minutes. Everyone laughed.
He's the best. He never holds back. Did you ever deal with him with either of the lawsuits? I mean, the trials?
I didn't deal with him on the trials. I dealt with him. There was an effort to remake him after one of the problems, so I dealt with him then, and I felt, though, actually, I always felt sorry for him. I mean, he was clearly a genius and clearly, dysfunctional on many levels, and at the same time tremendously bright and manipulative, and he understood the media. But he was, he was surrounded by like a lot of these people. When you get to be that famous, man, it's just a paycheck. It's the pretense of caring and the paycheck. And unfortunately, with this guy, it was the people closest to him,
right.
Closest to him. But did you read the Journal yesterday? Did you read this guy Bill Wyman's column?
No.
Oh, it's a great column on because I've been playing with this whole theory about now who gets the throne, the king of pop.
It's probably not filled.
It's not filled,
I mean, Justin Timberlake would need, I think, another gigantic album to maybe even think about starting to get there.
Yeah, I'm not even sure it needs to be a musician, that's my point, It could be because I think there's another title that's on the greatest living baseball player. No one wants to put their foot up, no one
You don't think that's Pujols?
No.
Or are you talking about retired or...
Come on, you're a Boston guy, man. DiMaggio had it, then Ted Williams.
I thought it was Willie Mays. Didn't we all agree it's Willie Mays?
I don't think so. And,
really?
I don't think Hank Aaron agrees with that, And,
but the people who were there in the 50s and 60s, they all said seeing Willie was like an experience unlike any other.
Well, I saw him a ton of times, and as I said, I revered him until I met him, later on in life,
Right. That is tough when you meet people that... Out of all the people you met, who seemed the most famous? Does that make sense?
Most famous?
Yeah, the one that you're in the room with and you're like, my God, that person is...
Well, the only person... That's a good question. That I think I've been intimidated by 2 people in my life. One, this is about in the mid-'80s, was Diana Ross.
Really?
I'll tell you why. The unbelievable beauty, that she had then, and she was cold,
Right.
So you're like, you didn't know,
It's like a beautiful ice queen.
Yeah, and I solved a major problem for her. I don't know if you remember, she gave this concert in Central Park and poured, and the fans rioted and stuff, and
right.
And I made it solved.
You're like the wolf in Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
You're just like you're in some hotel room with a tuxedo on, and you get these calls. Hey, the wolf, we need you.
Yeah, and then I didn't represent him or anything. I've never even met him, but I was in Elaine's one night, and Clint Eastwood walked in. That was pretty cool.
Oh, I've heard that from other people because he's tall. He's like 6'4", right?
Yeah,
There's
that
just
was pretty
an aura
cool.
about him.
Yeah. But I will say this: years ago, I had Tyson when he before he won the title.
When he had his fastball.
When he had his fastball, and there were times that I was with him in public. And that was walking down the streets in Midtown, right? Coming out of NYU Medical Center. Remember after he broke his hand when he punched out Mitch Green? You know?
Right.
And that was pretty... I mean, people were mobbing him, man.
Really?
Mobbing him, you know?
Who was the most charismatic guy that you've been around?
Well, you're up there.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate
You're up
that.
there.
Thank you.
The most charismatic guy.
Most charismatic guy who could just command the room.
Nicholson.
Or girl.
Nicholson.
Oh. Younger Nicholson or older Nicholson?
20 years ago, Trump. When Trump first took over the hotel in Atlantic City, he'd have these world championship fights there. You know, all the Tyson fights. You know, Tyson Spinks, Tyson Biggs, all of that. And he was so smart, Trump. He would, and I represented him. He would have. He'd stage him on, like, I guess, a Saturday night, so, like, people, and he'd have a big party Friday night, because the whole deal was get people up there for 3 days so they gamble, right?
Yeah.
And Trump he bought his own helicopter. It was a 25-seat helicopter with flight attendants, right?
Oh, my God.
And it was filled with Nicholson and Beatty and Paul Simon. Are you ready for this? DiMaggio, Madonna, right?
Right.
But Nicholson, man. That was like that, and I remember busting his chops about. I told him like the Lakers made some trade, and just completely made it up. He was all bummed out.
What about
smartest and nicest guy, most honorable, right?
Yeah.
Most intellectual. Not even close. Paul Simon.
Really?
Not even remotely close. An absolute. You know, you don't like to use the term genius, but an absolute genius.
And a basketball fan.
No, baseball.
I thought he liked basketball
No,
too.
he baseball Yankee fanatic and really, 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 really funny, but people don't know it. You know.
You did a little work for the 2009 Finals MVP. Once upon a time.
Kobe.
Yes.
Yeah. You know what? You ready for this?
Yeah.
Never met him.
All by phone?
All by phone with his agent Rob Pelinka, and then I took I guess my kid was about 7 years old. I took him to Houston for the All-Star game, and you know, of course, the NBA made him a ball boy, all that stuff, and I introduced myself to Kobe, and he was terrific. You know, he took my kid and brought him around for like a half hour. You know,
right?
You know, so
that's nice. Well, you solved his problem. There was a problem with
I did.
The
you know what I did on that? I just helped him out in the conclusion of the case. That's
like how his statement was and all that stuff.
Nah, more than that, but but anyway, he was always a gentleman, and he's I root for him, man. He is, everyone everyone says, oh, LeBron, Kobe, and I always feel it's a ridiculous discussion, like. You take either in a second. What's the difference? But
So basically, I'm going to need to get the story from you after about 5 glasses of wine at dinner some night in New York. I'll wait till then.
No.
It's going to be a $1,200 dinner for me.
If Pelinka gets a hold of this, man, he sent me an email about a year ago. Oh, Kobe wants to send your children sneakers, and I said, here's the sizes, and then I never heard back, baby.
When was the last time you were brought in to be the wolf?
I've been out for years, man.
No calls, nothing?
2 or 3 years ago, I got brought in for Howard Stern against Moonves at CBS,
Yeah. Oh, because Stern's your friend.
Yeah, and then I got brought into something, and they didn't want to listen, so what are you going to do, man, The Garden with Isaiah,
I was wondering if you got involved in that.
Yeah, they just didn't listen,
Apparently not, because it was one of the dumbest handled things.
There was only one word I said from the very beginning.
Settle?
You bet.
Yeah.
That's it.
There you go. All right, so when you finish this this Reggie documentary, what's next?
I have an off-Broadway play that I've written that's coming out. And,
cool.
And then I got a feature film, a romantic comedy called Dance to the Music that I'm doing with a company called Green Street. And I had a HBO pilot that I wrote, but I don't think they're going to shoot it. So I'll probably, we're, quote, going to be in turnaround.
Oh, good. That puts you in common with about 5,000 other people, including myself.
Yeah, at least I got paid a big check.
Yeah, they're famous for that. So you want to talk last thing about 30 for 30, how excited you are? Let's do that whole thing. Just for Connor Shell, we'll do it for him. Great
Otherwise, I'll have a breakdown.
Well, yeah, it's the greatest collection of filmmakers ever assembled.
Yeah. It's pretty cool, Neil. Like for me, it's really cool because Barry Levinson, and he's doing that film on when the coach snuck out of Baltimore. I mean, I idolize Barry Levinson. Tin Man. My father was a door-to-door salesman, so Tin Man is one of my favorite. Dinah, and I didn't even realize. I forgot that he did Bugsy.
Oh yeah.
How great is Bugsy, man? Yeah. Ron Shelton is doing Jordan.
Well, I got to say, I've seen a couple.
Yeah.
And the bar is set high. I wouldn't mail yours in. Put it that way.
Let me tell you something, man.
The Allen Iverson thing is going to be incredible.
Yeah.
I think it's going to blow the doors off everything.
Good.
And the Levinson one's great.
Yeah.
The Jimmy the Greek one's head in a good spot.
Yeah.
Apparently the Gretzky one's in really good shape. So I just think this is going to be awesome.
Let me tell you something. Mailing it in, it's not my style.
Yeah, I know.
But all I'm going to say is this. I'm doing it as a dark comedy, and you ready?
Yeah.
And I'm doing it to opera.
Really?
Yeah. So.
See, this is the thing. This is why I'm so excited for this, because every documentary is going to be different. We were talking about this last night. Every approach is going to be completely different. There's no relation really at all.
Yeah.
So I just think every week you're not going to know where it's going or what to expect. Well, will you come back during basketball season?
Totally, man. If totally. You got to brush up a little, but we'll be there.
I got to brush up.
How old are you?
I'm going to be 40 this year.
Oh, man, you're a young dude, man.
I was 6 years old at the Triple OT Boston Phoenix game.
I was at an earlier game in that series. My friend lived in Cambridge, but I can't lie and say I was at that game.
Yeah, that was the game. I mean, that was one of my first memories.
Is that right?
Yeah, really. I mean, I was only 6, and how do you not remember a game that starts at 9 o'clock and people pouring on the court, getting home at 1:30?
When I was watching these Knicks Pacer games, the guy that was a I don't want to use great, but a guy who had a game that was much more diverse than people ever give him credit for was Oakley. I mean, come on. He could hit that 15-footer. He'd make the pass. He was ferocious.
Well, he was everyone else was afraid of him, which was another fantastic quality.
People were, and they had good reason to, according to everyone, And but I have a funny sequence, because the Knicks are all talking about, you can never come down the middle against us, boom, 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 boom. But the Pacers are saying the same thing, man.
Right.
It
was the heyday of that.
Antonio Davis says this, man. He says when Reggie got the headbutt, he says, let me tell you something, man. He says, I was surprised he didn't have a package of ketchup in his shorts. Put it on his forehead. All
right, well, we're looking forward to it. When are we thinking that this is going to...
It's March, man.
Oh, it's definitely March.
It's March. Maybe I'll get real lucky, like with Black Magic.
So maybe the Black Magic will be on DVD by then, and you'll be like Mr. Pro ESPN at that point.
Yeah, that's it.
All right, Dan Klores, thank you so much.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks for appearing in the Subway Fresh Take Hotline.
Thanks, man.
All right, talk to you soon.
Bye, Bill.
So I get to sign off. Whoa!
Thank you for downloading the B.S. Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at Pod Center at ESPNRadio.com.
Peace out.
This concludes another installment of the B.S. Report. And with all the talk about sports, Bill Simmons neglected to mention this important just breaking news, which frankly cannot go unstated. This summer, Subway is teaming up with Live Nation to bring you great food and great music for a great value. Right now, buy a Subway $5 footlong and get a Live Nation concert ticket for just $5 to some of the hottest Live Nation shows like Nickelback, The Fray, and Crew Fest 2. Ticket price does not include fees. See the nearest Subway for details.